thank you for joining me today. With me today, I have Donovan Everett, the CEO, the man of D.A. Everett Construction Management. He is best known in the North Carolina region for, really managing and helping out on the public side of construction management. Everything from schools, higher ed, even in the automotive space. So welcome. Thank you for being here today.
Thanks, Chris. Honored to be a part of your podcast and excited to talk to you about what we do and how we do it and everything in between.
So before we dive into anything technical, why don't you give us a little bit of your background, your origin story, what you've been working on and doing, and how things are operating for you currently?
So I'll start first. Like you said, president of D.A. Everett Construction. We're a commercial general contractor, construction manager, based here in Raleigh, North Carolina, and we cover North Carolina, South Carolina, Georgia, and the U.S. Virgin Islands, and several core markets: healthcare, education, which is K through 12, higher ed. Automotive and corporate interiors, corporate office, and public assembly spaces that we work in. So we do stuff outside of that, but relationship driven primarily. And we've been in business going on 8 years now, going strong. I think like everybody else in this industry, everybody's busy and turning out and doing some good work. My background started, I've been in construction all my life and, worked for a big international firm after I graduated from college and, had the great opportunity of working on some big, massive signature projects here in the area. And then, just that entrepreneurial itch bit me and had to scratch it about 7-8 years ago. And, colleague of mine, good friend, colleague that worked together at that international place we left there and started D.A. Everett Construction Group, and just been going strong ever since, and just enjoying every moment of it, just trying to scale and grow our business and do what we are asked to do by our clients. So.
Yeah, and you haven't looked back since, right?
Not once.
Blinders on. And keep going. Yeah. So, that's really speaks to the marketplace and what's going on, and really, we're experiencing the same thing as you are. This growth in the country, even through COVID, the public space has continued to kind of chug along, even though there's been hurdles and slowdowns and things like that. How are you seeing? What challenges are you seeing is probably a better way for me to phrase it in this space, really the higher ed, the K-12s, the things like that, healthcare.
Yeah. I'll say the first challenge is make sure the expectation of everybody in that cycle, the expectation is known of what we're dealing with in the current market, because everybody's used to pre-pandemic and the times where you can get materials next week or something costs X dollars per square foot. And so these budgets and expectations are not to where the actuals reality are today.
Right.
So that's the first challenge of getting everybody in line to what really the expectation is, so that everybody understands what we're actually dealing with and what you can actually do. And outside of that, go out into the market. There's, we're dealing with the shortages of labor because everybody's busy for one, and then so not everybody has all these different crews available just ready to go to work.
Sure.
And then material availability. Like I said, what would normally take you 2 to 3 weeks to get, now it's taking 8, 10, 12, in some cases 8, 9, 10 months to get some material. So managing that and building schedules out around that and costing for that, because some of these bigger projects, we're going early on to a contract, but we're not bidding some of these phases out 6, 7, 8 months down the road. So what is going on with inflation? And you got the war that's going on. So you start having all these unknowns that you're trying to manage the expectation of the owner, the expectation of the market, and the expectation of you as the construction manager and a design partner to make sure the design and the program is getting put into the project.
Sure. You bring up a good point. You're designing from conception, right? A project, there's a design process that could take anywhere from 6 to 12 months, depending on what the project is. And then you're going out to bid, and 12 months in today's world with everything going on, like you mentioned what's going on in Ukraine, supply chain issues, the world changes 100% in 12 months, right? So from, you might think that steel's available or a mechanical, piece of equipment, but then 12 months later, it's, pushed out 6 months further than you thought it was, or it costs 20% more.
Absolutely.
How, when you're talking with clients, when you're talking with other contractors, the design team, how are those conversations being received? Because we live, Americans especially, we're like, we want it now, we can get it now. And that, as you mentioned, doesn't happen. Are you seeing, some sort of leniency and understanding with clients and teams?
Yeah, I think the clients that they have a building program, I think they understand it a lot more than somebody that do it, every now and again.
Right.
Or the clients. I'll go to the private side real quick. That are real keen to the markets and what the markets are doing, because their business is affected. So they understand how that transfers completely down or out to across all markets. So the conversations are easier now than they were, a year, 2 years ago.
Sure.
But I think it's for what I've seen, I think it's how the message is packaged, delivered, but have an understanding that you're trying to help them solve their problem,
right?
And working as a team to solve it together with the design partner, trade partners, and how can we do that with the knowns that we have out there of materials, costs, and all of that. So.
Sure. Are you, so we had this conversation as professionals early on, clients with the teams, everybody gets on the same page. Is there a constant flow? Are you seeing a constant flow, ebb and flow really, of, all right, we have a CMU building, but we can't get CMU XYZ reasons, or we can't get steel, pivot to concrete. Yeah. How are those conversations going? Because that's a huge, instead of just designing a building, going to bid, and then building it, there's this constant kind of set of hurdles in the way. Are those conversations being had? Are they frustrating? Are they difficult to navigate, pin down?
Yeah, I think it's, like I said, been easier to have over time. I think one thing that lends itself to have those better conversations is a lot of times the delivery method. So when you have the design partner and the construction partner on early on, those conversations are easier before you guys get so far down the line.
Sure.
You've designed this building that's CMU, or that the structure's, a certain way, and then here comes this construction manager with this other data that, you're down the road so this far along to deliver this message, and then things kind of, go a different way. But I think the delivery method that allows to have a construction partner on early with the design partner to make those decisions early on will help alleviate a lot of those hard reworks and hard decisions that had to be made early on, so that the owner can still get most of the program that they're trying to get, and the designer can get can design a project that they feel that they are proud of and that's efficient, and anything that goes to it, and then we can align the budget with all those early on, so we can all are on the same page. So
sure. Are you seeing more of a delivery methods in the public world? There's kind of a finite amount of what you're allowed to do. Where you get into private work, you have much more flexibility. Are you seeing at least the conversation to maybe fast track certain things, like, hey, we know we can get the foundation in and the slab down, let's do that, let's roll on that, kind of do a early bid package on the things that are set in the knowns, maybe get ahead of some of the inflation. Hey, let's get this slab down, let's get the foundation in, we'll adjust the rest of the structure, we'll modify the building envelope as we go. Are those things that you're working on?
Yeah, we're seeing that a lot. Early GMP packages and things of that nature. Example, the site, the structure. To get ahead of those, one, you have several components. If you have a fast track schedule, you want to get ahead of it. Yeah. And if you're trying to get ahead of the inflation or long lead items, you want to do that. But everybody's got, again, it goes back to that early on discussion, because you guys have to be able to withstand, if you're going to do a DD deliverable on with just a structure, but we're trying to maintain a budget, you you're almost designing a little past D.A. I mean, you're
right.
It's not really D.A., but you still designing because you have to stay in that budget. So it's a lot of hard discussions up front about what really are we needing as the CM, but what you're going to be able to deliver as the designer.
Sure.
And still knowing that there still has to be a design that still has to continue. So early packages are definitely something that we do a lot of. We're doing it, and believe it or not just the public side, even the private side. We just did it on a car dealership where we went. The owner was like, "I need to get this steels out there that the manufacturer's pushing me. I got to open a store. I need it." So we're like, "Okay, let's get the steel and the skin, or it's still in the structure, and we'll figure out all the pieces later." Even though it's a car dealership, but we went into that same approach.
Yeah. Yeah, and just for everybody listening, we're talking a lot of industry terms here. So DD, design development, right? Schematic design development, construction documents, and also, we talk about kind of fast delivery, fast track projects. The industry for the longest time was kind of set up as design, bid, build traditionally, and then there's been some other delivery methods that have, overlaid in that over the years where you speed things up a little bit. But now we're kind of going to a run and gun sort of situation where, regardless of the setup, public, private, and even procurement laws and requirements, there's still this navigation of, all right, what can we do now? Can we break the project up? Still, if we have to meet a procurement law requirement, design, bid, build, but do that break that package out separately and roll. And I think to your point with this car dealership, or I've even seen it on some schools and hospital projects, we want this done now because we know inflation is going to continue, and we just don't have the money on the back end. The owner is saying, I can't afford 20% inflation. And some of these packages, well, we see 7% inflation on the news. 20% on mechanical equipment is not unheard of. Right. Or just even finding steel, for example. I think Amazon has bought pretty much every bar joist in the country. So now you're looking at, do we switch to concrete? Do we switch to, W steel? Cellular beams, those sorts of things where you have to, all right, going into this, think, we're not going to be able to get bar joists. Amazon bought them all. What do we do now? Right. And have that conversation early on. So I'm assuming you're seeing some of that too. Hey, let's get ahead of inflation, fast track this.
Yep, they're banking on, it's going to cost me more down the road. And particularly, and I go back to the private side where they have this money, they have a pro forma, and they can't afford to spend anymore because it blows the pro forma up.
Sure.
So let's get it now and let's get it. And that's kind of what similar situation there.
Sure. So, do you expect to see, and everybody, we're not economists, but do you expect to see this go back to normal? Is this the new normal in terms of pricing and the way we work?
Yeah. If you'd asked me 2 years ago, I'd go, yeah, we're going to go back to normal.
Yeah.
I'm almost convinced that this is probably the new normal.
Sure.
Just because you look at now down chain what we're dealing with. I mean, these prices that are now built into the way we do our lives and our businesses now are not going to go away.
Right.
They're there.
Yeah.
And so I think it's just part of the economic cycle of inflation and costs. If you look 20 years ago, that same building cost a lot cheaper than it is today. So I think the way we're doing business, we just have to come up with new strategic ways to do business in this new normal that we have, and get smart about it, retool to fight through this new normal and become better from it. And I think we'll be kidding ourselves to say, well, we're just going to sit and wait till go back to normal. Yeah. Those that do that, I think, will be left behind, and the good ones will go ahead.
Yeah, I've seen some clients in a lot of projects that aren't even mine. Hey, we're going to put this on hold for 12 months, and we think the prices will come back down. And I think when you go through a big build period and then a recession, those things happen, or they used to, right? You could kind of count on that. Hey, we think the economy is going to pull back, but we've printed $8 trillion, and a lot of that money has been pushed towards infrastructure and building projects, more money chasing the same amount of goods, and we've created this sort of supply and demand issue for bar joists and concrete and all these other things. So I tend to agree with you. I don't think we're going to see prices, drop dramatically. If anything, they're probably going to go up for the next 12, 18 months at the pace we've been seeing. So
I mean, you think about how much money has been printed in the last however many years, but prices and stuff haven't gone up as much as money's out there that's been printed.
Right.
You know, so I mean, it's not very difficult to understand that, it's going to be hard to go back to
what it was.
What it was, in my opinion. I just don't see how that is.
I agree. And I think that's why you see some projects being pushed forward, even if it's a building envelope package or a foundation package. It's, hey, we got to get this done now. I know it's going to cost 12% more next year, whatever the case may be. Do you think supply chain, is this a new normal, a supply chain too? I mean, inflation aside, the supply chain's been hugely disrupted and right now seemingly not back to normal. Right. Supply chain, I think, was much more fragile than we all thought it was, right? Literally, in-time delivery, and now we can't get anything on time. Some cases I've seen equipment be pushed at 18 months from the time of, purchase order. So this is just the new way we have to plan.
I think it's kind of, I think so. One being, you just talked about money that was printed that's now been pushed into infrastructure and projects, bonds. So you have all these projects that are now going to go. Yeah. And I don't care where you're doing that. Most projects are going to have concrete. Most projects have steel. Most school buildings are going to have HVAC and all these similar different things. So all these things are coming to market at one point in time or over the same period of time. And the supply chain is already hurting to keep up with the demand that we have. And then you add that much more demand to it. Not unless we come up with some new inventive way of doing this, I think it's going to put some strain on the supply chain for the foreseeable future. That I think that we just got to figure out a way. How do we build these projects out from concept to completion with in mind that this is what we're dealing with, and I think it starts with truthful, honest, hard conversations. And I was listening to someone the other day, and I was like, man, you have to tell them straight up the truth because you're painting a picture that's not accurate. And then so I think we just have to be honest with what we're dealing with and be smart about it and build that into the project and educate the owners out there that So
I agree. I've seen, and we all want to be the knight on the white horse, right? Come in and say, hey, I can get this done for you in 6 months. But the reality is, it's supply chain issues. There's also, even on the permit side, it's not just the private industry like architects and CMs that are having issues staffing up and finding staff to handle this capacity. Even, public agencies that issue the permits for these projects are backed up too. So your permit time's longer, design times are a little bit longer because we're trying to navigate to how do we do this and keep it in budget and on some sort of schedule, supply chain issues. So I think, we all want what we want when we want it, but the reality is right now you can get in a lot of trouble, spend a lot more time on a project and cost a lot more money by being impatient, so to speak. In this environment. So I agree. It's a bad taste of medicine up front early on, but But
I think also is having the minds come together early to develop alternative solutions to deal with the knowns. And I think, designers and contractors come together early to, okay, we know we have this known issue. What can we do that's different to solve this problem to, again, deliver to the client a building that they want in a year or two or whatever the case may be. So I think there's solutions that we can work through from the execution stage of a project, but again, that's got to everybody's got to be on the same wavelength to do that.
Yeah, absolutely. Do you think, trying to look at the, what's the silver lining in this cloud? Is there going to be, new methods? Do you think there's going to be new methods that come out of this, or just the way we work as in the construction industry and design industry that will become the new normal? That we're like, hey, that was really bad 24, 36 months that we went through, but coming out of it, we now realize that we can do these 4 or 5 things, or there's new software, whatever the case is.
I think so, man. I think anytime there's something difficult or challenging, you got to pull out the silver lining of it. And if it didn't teach us anything, it teaches us we have to be nimble. Mm-hmm. We have to be very on the forefront of stuff. Sure. Okay, if something happens, you got to be very able to quick turn on a dime. So I think efficiency is going to come out of anything. I think just how projects are delivered, to fast track them or to get them to market quicker. Sure. Try to hedge cost, supply issues. That's going to come out, and just how the project as a whole goes. You look at construction. We're kind of an old school. We're kind of behind on all technology, it seems like. But then, I think it's going to force us to look at things differently as an industry as a whole than we did over the last 50, 100 years as a business. Yeah. From the whole AEC community. Yeah. And I think the silos, working kind of in vacuums, hopefully that goes away. Yeah, I agree. And more of a approach that is everybody's sitting at the table to figure it out,
pulling the rope together. It's a very interesting topic you bring up, because we're very old industries, right? Architecture, construction go back like hundreds, if not thousands of years, and we were together in some regards, architects and builders, and then there was this bifurcation as technology came in and lawyers. And now it's almost like, well, hey, we got to get back to the way we did things 1,000 years ago. Yeah. And probably sprinkle in some new technology, right? Because we're really old industries, and there's probably a 14-year-old somewhere in his bedroom developing something that we don't know about.
Developing an NFT for something.
Yeah. That's going to take over the industry. So hopefully that helps. So I think if we could leave our audience with a couple tips, it sounds like having an honest, open conversation out of the gate. Yep. Look at design options early. Maybe breaking the package apart. Try to get ahead of inflation and scheduling issues. Anything else that I missed that we just talked about?
I think you hit it. And contractors from the contractor side have to be smart and on the forefront of things, and open to the differences of, just because we did it like this the last 20 years, that don't mean we can do it like this the next 20 years. Sure. Or whatever. So I think it's just the overhaul approach to how do we do business in this industry, but at the end of the day, is how are we helping our clients solve that problem or issue or whatever they're trying to do, build a building, renovate a building, create an environment, whatever that is.
And I think the other part that you just mentioned is working together. Yep. Sometimes there's this difference of opinion that you said, we haven't done it that way, or I'm the designer, I'm the architect, it's my way or the highway. If you're going to get through this, and especially even having an understanding client, those 3 forces, if you will, parties really need to come together to figure this out. So I think, again, a silver lining in this, but also having an awareness that, hey, we're all in this together.
Yep, absolutely.
Yeah. So, well, thank you. Yeah. Please check out Donovan's company, his website. What's the best spot for them to check you out?
Yeah. So, D.A. Everett, DAEverettGroup.com is our website, or you can get us on the social media platforms, D.A. Everett Group, on Instagram, LinkedIn, Facebook, and follow us on those. We're putting out what we're doing, how we're doing it. And
I love working with you, collaborating, hyper collaborative guy here. So
back
check
at
him
you,
out.
man. Appreciate it.
Thank you for joining us today. I think this was very helpful to, again, we're always looking to push out, and I think you are too, to the community as a whole, to, hey, how can we work better together. And this is a great ideas and concept here.
That's what it's about. That's that's how we change the industry.
That's right. Yeah. So thank you.
No, thank you, Chris. Yeah, thank you.